My name is Gabriel Reed. I am 70 years old. My daughter gave me an ultimatum, either serve her husband or leave. I smiled, grabbed my suitcase, and quietly left. A week later, I checked my phone for the first time. 37 missed calls. If you have ever had to set a boundary with a family that took you for granted, hit that like button and subscribe. I want to know your stories. Tell me in the comments where you are listening from. It began the day they decided my home was no longer my own. I was in the study, my late wife Sarah's study, carefully dusting the models. They were delicate, intricate replicas of the suspension bridges she had designed. Her genius was in every line, every tiny cable. She had been a titan, a brilliant structural engineer, and this room with her drafts, her awards, and her models was the last piece of her I had left. The house was quiet, just the way I liked it. Then the door flew open. No knock. Nolan never knocked. My son-in-law, Nolan Vance, strode in like he owned the place, already talking into his phone. He was a man built of bluster and cheap cologne. Yes, the valuation is conservative. We're looking at a 7-figure liquidation minimum. He gestured wildly and slammed his oversized laptop onto Sarah's mahogany desk. The impact sent her first model, the one we designed together, on a napkin skittering off the edge. It shattered on the hardwood floor. Nolan glanced down. Oh, sorry. He didn't sound sorry. He didn't even bend over. He kicked a piece of the broken strut aside. Hey, Gabe, he said, finally ending his call. You gotta clear this stuff out. I need this room for my new office. Gabe. Not Dad. Not Gabriel. Gabe. As if I were the pool boy. And this wasn't stuff. This was her soul. I knelt, my knees cracking, and picked up the splintered pieces. This is Sarah's study, Nolan. It's not an office. My daughter Ava appeared in the doorway. She had her mother's brilliant eyes, but lately they were filled with a weakness I didn't recognize. Dad, please, she said, her voice thin and anxious. We talked about this. We talked about Nolan visiting, I corrected, standing up. We did not talk about him annexing my home. It's the best light in the house, Nolan boomed, already measuring the wall with his arms. I'm meeting with investors. I need a professional space. I can't be taking million-dollar calls from a guest room. His startup, a vague tech concept he'd been launching for 3 years, a black hole that seemed to consume money without producing a single product. His investors, men I'd seen him with at expensive restaurants, men who had the same desperate, shifty eyes as he did. Ava, I said, turning to my daughter, this room stays as it is. Ava wrung her hands. Dad, it's just... Nolan's company is about to get major funding. We need to project success. Our little apartment is it's just too cramped. We need to be here. Nolan scoffed. Look, we're moving in this weekend. I'm taking this room. This is my house, Nolan, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. He put his arm around Ava, pulling her against him in a gesture of ownership. And Ava is your daughter. What's yours is hers, right? That's how family works. He smiled, but his eyes were cold. We just need a little support until the first round of funding closes. I looked at Ava, waiting. She just stared at the floor. In fact, Nolan continued, his confidence swelling, it would be much more practical if we just took the master bedroom. You know, with the ensuite. We'll be working late. And Dad, he finally used the title, but it felt like an insult. You can take the basement guest room. It's perfectly fine, isn't it? It even has its own bathroom. The basement. The room I had built out for visiting friends. They were moving me to the basement of the house I built with my own hands. The house Sarah had poured her heart into designing. I looked at my daughter, the girl I taught to read, the girl whose tears I dried, the girl who held my hand at her mother's funeral. She finally met my gaze. It'll be quieter for you down there, Dad. Really, you won't have to deal with all our business. It's for the best. I said nothing. I just nodded. I turned and began carefully placing the remaining models into their storage boxes. Nolan clapped his hands. Great, glad that's settled. Ava, honey, let's go measure the drapes. As they left the room, I heard her whisper, See, I told you he'd be reasonable. I wasn't being reasonable. I was documenting. This was not a request. It was a hostile takeover, and I needed to see how far they would go. A week later, I was in exile in my own home. My new room in the basement was damp. It smelled of mildew and old paint. I had set up a small cot surrounded by the boxed-up monuments of my wife's career. Upstairs, my life was being erased. I walked up to the kitchen at 7 in the morning. My kitchen, the one with the Italian tile Sarah and I had picked out. It was a war zone. Empty coffee cups, pizza boxes, and wine bottles littered the counters. Nolan was at the breakfast bar in his boxers, his back to me, typing furiously on his laptop. Coffee? He grunted, not looking up. Black. I am a 70-year-old man. I am a retired civil engineer. I have managed billion-dollar infrastructure projects. I have advised governors. And I found myself pouring coffee for a failed con artist in his underwear. I placed the mug down quietly. Nolan took a sip, made a face, and spun around. This tastes burnt. Make another pot. Before I could answer, he stood up, grabbed a crumpled dress shirt from the back of a chair and threw it at me. It hit me in the chest. And iron this, I've got a Zoom call with Zurich at 9. I looked at the shirt. A $300 shirt. I knew because I had seen the charge on the household credit card statement. A card I paid. The rage was a cold, slow river rising inside me. But I also felt a deep, chilling curiosity. I needed to see the full extent of the rot. I needed to know what my daughter had truly become. Okay, I said, my voice neutral. Ava rushed in, frantic, her hair a mess. Dad, oh thank God, you're up. Nolan just invited the Swiss investors over tonight. The Swiss investors. The ones Nolan claimed were about to wire him $8 million. I need you to work your magic, Dad, she pleaded, her hands fluttering. The full spread. That beef bourguignon you make, the one Mom loved, and your chocolate lava cakes for dessert. Everything has to be perfect. Sarah. She had brought up Sarah. My wife always said my beef bourguignon was the only thing that could make her forget a bad day at the office. It was our private, sacred meal, and now Ava was asking me to serve it to these vultures. And will I be joining you? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Ava's face contorted with embarrassment. Oh, Dad, no. You don't understand. These are Swiss investors. They're particular. We need to project an image of success, of power. She lowered her voice. You can eat downstairs. Please, I'll bring you a plate. It's just, I don't want Nolan to be stressed. You know how he gets. It's for the good of the company. For the good of the company. The company built on my silence and funded by my bank account. I was to be the chef and then the prisoner. I nodded slowly. I understand. Her relief was so immediate it was sickening. Oh, thank you, Dad. You're a lifesaver. I needed groceries. I went to the garage to get my car, my Lexus. The car I'd kept meticulously maintained for 12 years. It was gone. Nolan's flashy leased sports car was there, but my car was missing. I walked back inside. Nolan was still at the counter. Nolan, where is my car? Oh, I borrowed it, he said, not looking up. Mine's low on gas, and I needed to pick up some things in the city. Don't wait up. He didn't ask. He announced. He didn't borrow. He took. I walked to the liquor cabinet by the fireplace. The cabinet where I kept the 25-year-old Macallan. The bottle Sarah and I had bought on our anniversary, the one we promised to open on our 50th. It was half empty. A dirty glass with Nolan's fingerprints sat right next to it. He wasn't just disrespectful. He was a parasite. He was consuming my home, my resources, and my wife's memory. And Ava was the willing host, letting the parasite feed. "Fine," I said to the empty room. "Let's see this through to the end." I spent the next 8 hours cooking. I wasn't just making food. I was preparing a last supper. I poured every ounce of my skill into that meal. The beef was perfect. The sauce was rich. The lava cakes were timed to the second. At 7 p.m., the house smelled like a Michelin-starred restaurant. I set the table with Sarah's wedding china, the silver she had inherited from her grandmother. I lit the candles. Then as I heard the first car pull up, I retreated to the basement. I closed the door and I sat on my cot in the damp silence. I listened. The sound of laughter, not genuine but forced and loud. The clinking of glasses, and Nolan's voice booming with false confidence, weaving a tapestry of lies. I waited an hour. My heart medication was in my old bathroom. The master bathroom. I had a right to get my medication. I crept up the stairs. The basement door opened into a small hallway near the dining room. They were all seated, their backs to me. Nolan was at the head of the table holding court. "This house, yes," I heard one of the investors, a man with a thick German accent, say. "It is magnificent, a true piece of American history." I froze in the shadow of the hallway. "Thank you, Ulrich," Nolan replied, his voice smooth as oil. "Yes, one of our family's assets. My father-in-law. Well, he's 70. Nolan let out a small, sad sigh. "He's not quite all there, if you catch my meaning." A sympathetic murmur went around the table. "We've had to step in," Nolan continued. "Ava and I. We're managing his affairs. It's a heavy burden, as you can imagine, but family is family." I felt the blood drain from my face. "In fact," Nolan said, leaning in conspiratorially, "we're preparing to liquidate this property. It's a beautiful house, but it's just sitting here not performing. We need to move the assets into something with a better return on investment, like my startup, for example." Liquidate. My home. Sarah's home. He was using my wife's memory as collateral for his con. I must have made a sound. Or maybe my rage was so palpable it had a physical presence. Ava, on her way to the kitchen with a tray, saw me. "Dad?" she hissed, her eyes wide with panic. "What are you doing? I told you to stay downstairs." The party went silent. Every guest turned to look at the old man in the simple sweater standing in the shadows. Nolan's face turned a deep, blotchy purple. He threw his napkin on the table and stormed out of the dining room. "What the hell?" he seethed, grabbing my arm in a vice grip. "Do you think you're doing—" He dragged me, a 70-year-old man, into the kitchen like a disobedient child. The investors stared, their forks frozen mid-air. "You just embarrassed me." Nolan slammed the kitchen door shut, but the glass pane did nothing to muffle his voice. "You humiliated me in front of my investors." Ava ran in after us, closing the main door. "Nolan, stop it. He just wanted his medicine." "I don't care," Nolan roared, shoving me against the counter. The impact sent a jolt of pain up my spine. "I am done with this. I am done with him." He turned his face inches from mine. I could smell the Macallan on his breath. My Macallan. "Listen to me, old man," he spat. "You are a problem. You are in the way." He poked me hard in the chest. "Here is the new deal. You have two options. One, you stay here. You are the help. You drive me, you cook my meals, you iron my shirts, and you shut your mouth. You do exactly as I say when I say it." I stared at him. I saw the pure, unfiltered greed. I saw the boy who had nothing, now convinced he was a king. "Two," he continued. "You take your suitcase and you get out. Vanish. Disappear. I don't care where you go. But you get out of my house, you get out of my way." He smiled, a cruel twist of his lips. "I'll give you 24 hours to decide. Ava, get him out of my sight." I didn't look at Nolan. I looked at my daughter. I held her gaze. Ava, this was it. This was the moment. The final line. Ava looked at the floor. She looked at Nolan. She looked at me. And she started to cry. Dad! And she whispered, her voice breaking. Maybe just for tonight. Just go downstairs. Please, don't make him angrier. And there it was. The final betrayal. I felt something click inside me. A switch. The part of me that was a father. The part that hoped, the part that was willing to endure. It just turned off. I straightened my sweater. I looked at Nolan, and I smiled. It was not a smile of defeat. It was a smile of absolute ice-cold clarity. I don't need 24 hours. I turned and walked calmly to the basement door. Nolan and Ava watched confused, expecting me to retreat. I opened the door, but I didn't go down the stairs. I reached just inside and grabbed the small brown leather suitcase that had been packed and waiting by the door for a week. I had known this day would come. I just didn't know when. I walked past them through the hallway toward the front door. Wait, where are you going? Ava stammered, following me. Dad, stop. Nolan stood frozen, this scenario not part of his plan. I opened the front door. The cold night air felt good on my face. I paused. I looked back at my daughter, her face a mask of confusion and tears. You made your choice, Ava. I stepped out into the night and closed the door behind me. I left them standing in the silent, stunned house with a table full of investors, a dinner they didn't cook, and a future that had just irrevocably ended. The taxi pulled away from the curb. I watched my daughter's face, a mask of confusion and horror, shrink in the rearview mirror until it was just another light in the darkness. I did not look back. I sat straight, my hands resting on the small, worn leather suitcase in my lap. The driver glanced at me in the mirror. His eyes were full of the casual pity reserved for the discarded. He saw an old man in a simple coat, a single bag kicked out of his home on a cold night. He saw exactly what Ava and Nolan saw. He saw what I had allowed them to see for 10 years. Where to, Pops? He asked, his voice kind. The bus station, a motel on the highway. I cleared my throat. The Four Seasons, downtown. The driver almost swerved into the next lane. What, sir? That's the most expensive hotel in the city. Are you sure? I am quite sure, I said. He shrugged, clearly convinced I was senile, that I would be turned away the moment I stepped through the door. He was in for a surprise. We pulled up under the gleaming, heated portico. A young doorman in a crisp, dark uniform rushed to open my door, his smile bright and professional. Then his eyes flickered. He took in my simple wool coat, my practical worn shoes, my single scuffed suitcase. The smile faltered, becoming a mask of polite tolerance. May I help you, sir? He asked. His hand instinctively moved to block the entryway, rather than to welcome me in. I have a reservation, I said, walking past him. The lobby was an ocean of marble and quiet money. People drifted by in clothes that cost more than my monthly pension. Their quiet conversations paused as they looked at me. I was a ghost from a different world, an error in their perfect, glittering reality. I walked to the front desk. A young woman with an immaculate blazer smiled, a tight, practiced smile. Good evening, sir. How may I help you? Reservation, I said. The name is Reed, G.M. Reed. Her fingers danced over the keyboard, her smile still in place. Then her fingers stopped. Her smile froze. She looked up from the screen, her eyes wide, all professional polish gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated shock. She looked at my face, then back at the screen. Mr. Reed, G.M. Reed. That is correct, I said. I believe you have the royal suite held for me. I require it for an indefinite stay. Yes. Yes, of course, Mr. Reed. Right away, sir. My apologies. And she was scrambling, her voice suddenly breathy, her hands fumbling with the keycards. We weren't expecting you this evening. My plans changed, I said. Of course, sir. We will just need a credit card for incidentals. I reached into my simple wallet. The same wallet Ava had given me for Christmas 5 years ago, the one she probably bought on sale. I bypassed the standard boring bank cards. I pulled out the one I had not held in my hands for almost a decade. It was heavy black and forged from anodized titanium, the American Express Centurion card. I slid it across the marble counter. It did not make a click like plastic. It made a dull, definitive thud. The receptionist did not even try to hide her stare this time. She took the card as if it were a live coal. "Thank you, Mr. Reed," she stammered. "We will of course bypass the standard hold. The general manager will be up to greet you personally." "That will not be necessary," I said, taking my card back. "Just the key, and please ensure I am not disturbed, under any circumstances." "Absolutely, sir." The change was instantaneous. I was no longer an old man. I was a power. The doorman who had hesitated to let me in was now falling over himself, trying to grab my single old suitcase. "I will manage," I said, waving him off. I walked to the private elevator. The doors closed, sealing me in polished silence. The royal suite was not a room. It was an apartment. It took up the entire top floor, a sprawling penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows that revealed the entire city skyline. The lights of the city glittered below me like a river of scattered diamonds. This view alone was worth more than the house Nolan was so desperate to steal. I walked over to the magnificent, unlit marble fireplace. On the mantel sat a framed photo of my wife, Sarah. The hotel staff kept it here for me. I picked it up. "Well, Sarah," I whispered, "I suppose the quiet life is over." They didn't know G.M. Reed. Gabriel Marshall Reed. When Sarah and I founded Reed Marshall Engineering, we were just two young engineers with a radical idea. We weren't just building bridges. We were reinventing them. Sarah. My Sarah. She wasn't just brilliant. She was a visionary. She developed 3 key patents for seismic retrofitting and high-tensile load-bearing alloys. Patents that are now the mandatory standard for over 70% of all public infrastructure projects in North America. She built an empire. I simply managed it. When she died, the money became meaningless. It was just paper. All I had left was Ava. I wanted Ava to have a normal life. I wanted her to value effort, not inheritance. I wanted her to be good. I didn't want her to become the kind of person the kind of person Nolan was. So I hid. I retired. I became Gabe, the simple retired widower living on a fixed pension. I put the entire fortune, all the patents, all the royalties into the Reed Marshall Trust, a quiet fund that generated. I glanced at my watch. About $14 million a year. I lived modestly. I let the trust grow untouched. It was all for Ava. It was always for Ava. But I had made one critical, devastating mistake. I had raised her to be kind, but I had not raised her to be strong. I had not prepared her for the Nolans of the world, and in my desire to protect her from the burden of wealth, I had made her vulnerable to the lure of it. Nolan thought I was a doddering old fool. He thought he was a wolf circling a sheep. He never realized he was a coyote trying to steal from a sleeping grizzly. I sat down at the massive oak desk, a desk fit for a king. I took out my simple old flip phone. I did not dial 911. I did not call a friend. I dialed the number for my private legal counsel. "Carla Diaz speaking?" "Carla," I said. "It's Gabriel Reed." There was a sharp intake of breath. "Gabriel, my God. It's been, 3 years? I thought you were meditating on a mountaintop in Peru." "Hello, Carla. I've been occupied. I'm at the Four Seasons. I need you to execute contingency plan Sarah, effective immediately. The line went utterly silent for 3 seconds. Carla Diaz was my wife's lawyer, my lawyer and the executor of the trust. She knew exactly what contingency Sarah meant. It was the scorched earth protocol. Are you certain, Gabriel? Her voice was now ice. That plan is absolute. It's irreversible. They put me in the basement, Carla. Another beat of silence. I see, she said. I'll begin immediately. What are the first steps you want activated? I looked out the window at the glittering, indifferent city. I was no longer Gabe, the confused old man. I was GM Reed, the chairman of the board. First, I said, file the injunction. Freeze the Reed Marshall subsidiary trust, the one in Ava's name. Her access is suspended. All associated credit lines, including all cards under Nolan Vance's name, are to be immediately revoked. Understood, she replied, the sound of typing already audible. Second, contact every bank holding Nolan Vance's business loans. Inform them that the Reed Marshall Trust is formally withdrawing all personal guarantees effective immediately. The full guarantee. The one I walashly signed for him last year. Gabriel, Carla said, that will trigger an immediate call on his loans. He will be bankrupt by 8 a.m. tomorrow. I am aware of that, I said. Third, I want a full forensic audit of his startup, Vance Dynamics. I have been letting him play his little game, but tonight I heard him tell investors he is liquidating my home to fund it. I want to know where every penny I did give him went. We are on it. I will have the team at his office by sunrise. Good. And Carla, one last thing. Yes, Gabriel. Contact the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC. My name and the Reed Marshall name have been used to fraudulently solicit investments for a company I know to be insolvent. I believe the term is securities fraud. I want my son-in-law investigated to the fullest extent of the law. Carla paused. When she spoke again, her voice was grave. By sunrise, Gabriel, his life as he knows it will be over. He forced my hand, I said. I looked down at the city, at the endless stream of cars moving over bridges. Sarah's bridges, my bridges. He didn't just disrespect me, Carla. He disrespected my wife. He made his bed. Now, he gets to lie in it. I ended the call and sat back in the massive leather chair. The silence in the penthouse was absolute. Down below in my home, Nolan and Ava were probably celebrating, drinking my whiskey, believing they had finally won. They had no idea that the world they knew had already ceased to exist. Nolan Vance woke up the next morning feeling like a king. He stretched his arms, hitting the high vaulted ceiling of the master bedroom. His master bedroom. He got up and walked naked and confident across the cold hardwood floor to the bathroom. His bathroom. He looked at himself in the mirror that had belonged to the old man, and he smiled. He was finally in charge. The dead weight was gone. He went downstairs. The house was quiet. Ava was still asleep, probably exhausted from the unpleasantness of the previous night. Nolan scoffed. She was weak like her mother, all emotion. But that was fine. He was the strength. He walked into Sarah's study, his office. The boxes of bridges were gone. Good. Gabriel had at least been useful enough to clear out his own trash before disappearing. Nolan sat at the massive mahogany desk, put his feet up, and sipped the coffee he'd made in the high-end espresso machine, a machine he vaguely recalled the old man had bought. He laughed out loud. It didn't matter. Everything here was his now. Ava finally came downstairs, her eyes puffy and red. She was clutching her phone. Nolan, she said, her voice small. Have you heard from him? I'm worried. I tried calling the motel down the highway, the cheap one. They haven't seen him. Nolan rolled his eyes. Ava, stop. He's a 70-year-old man having a tantrum. He's fine. He's probably halfway to a retirement home in Florida by now, feeling sorry for himself. Forget him. But we were too harsh, Nolan. What he said about me not stopping you. He was trying to manipulate you, Nolan snapped. He's a bitter old man. Now stop worrying. Today is the first day of our real lives. The investors were impressed, I could tell. That dinner sealed it. And now, he clapped his hands together. It's time for phase 2. Watch this. He picked up his phone, dialed his mortgage broker, and put it on speaker. Jerry, it's Nolan Vance. How are you, Nolan? Good to hear from you. What's up? It's go time, Jerry. We're ready to pull the trigger on that line of credit. The asset is 123 Maple Drive, the big colonial. We discussed it. I want to pull out $800,000 against it minimum. We can get the appraisers in today. There was a pause on the other end. Nolan 123 Maple Drive, I'm looking at the file right now. I can't do that. Nolan's smile tightened. What do you mean you can't? It's a $2 million property, easy. $800K is nothing. No, I mean, Jerry sounded uncomfortable. I can't authorize a loan against it at all. The property isn't in your name, or your wife's. What are you talking about? Nolan laughed. It's family property. My wife Ava Reed is the sole heir. Her father is Gabriel Marshall Reed. Jerry interrupted, his voice professional now. And according to this title search, Mr. G.M. Reed placed this property into an irrevocable trust 30 years ago. The Reed Marshall Trust. He is the sole trustee. You have no legal claim to it. You can't even get a visitor's pass without his signature. Nolan felt the blood drain from his face. Irrevocable what? What the hell is Reed Marshall? I have no idea, Nolan. All I know is this house is locked up tighter than Fort Knox. You can't touch it. Sorry, man. My hands are tied. Jerry hung up. Nolan stared at the phone. He was breathing heavily. What? Ava whispered. What is it? The old man, Nolan said, his voice a low growl. He locked us out of the house legally. But it's his house, Nolan. Of course he played me, Nolan roared, slamming his fist on Sarah's desk. That's senile old. He stopped thinking fast. Fine, so we can't use the house. It's a delay, a stupid bureaucratic delay. It doesn't matter. He took a deep breath, forcing a smile. I'll just use the corporate cards for the startup expenses. It's fine. We'll celebrate tonight. That dinner with the Swiss investors, I'm booking the private room at the Arling. And you, he pointed at Ava, need to look the part. You need to look like a winner. Go buy that red dress we saw on 5th, the one with the matching shoes. Ava hesitated. Nolan, after last night, I don't know if we should be. Don't argue with me, Ava, go. We have to project success now more than ever. Go. Ava, accustomed to obeying, grabbed her purse and left. An hour later, she was standing in the glittering boutique. She felt a knot of guilt in her stomach, but Nolan's confidence was contagious. Maybe he was right. Dad had overreacted. This was just a family spat. She handed the smiling cashier the Platinum American Express card, the one her father had given her years ago for true emergencies. Nolan had insisted she use it for all joint expenses. The cashier swiped the card. The smile on her face faltered, replaced by a confused frown. I'm so sorry, ma'am, the cashier said, her voice dropping. It's been declined. Ava laughed, a nervous, high-pitched sound. Oh, that's impossible. It's a corporate card. Try it again. The cashier swiped it again. No, ma'am. Declined. Code revoked. Ava's face burned. The other wealthy patrons in the store were beginning to look. Okay, that's fine, she stammered. My husband must have switched the accounts. Just try this one. She handed over the Visa signature. Declined. The joint debit card, the one for the house. The cashier swiped it, then looked down at the screen, deeply uncomfortable. Ma'am, insufficient funds. Ava grabbed the cards, her hands shaking. There's been a mistake. She fled the store, the cashier's pitying gaze following her all the way out. She jumped into her car and immediately dialed Nolan. Nolan. Something is wrong. Something is terribly wrong. All the cards are declined, all of them. The debit account is empty. Nolan was already in a cold sweat. He had just tried to pay for the private room at the Arling, and his own card had been rejected. He was on the phone with the private bank, the one that managed Ava's trust fund. This is Nolan Vance. I'm calling about the accounts associated with Ava Reed. There seems to be a catastrophic mistake. All our cards are being declined. A cold, clipped professional voice came down the line. There is no mistake, Mr. Vance. What do you mean I'm looking at the balance? There are hundreds of thousands in that trust. Just run the damn cards. Sir, the banker said, his voice devoid of any warmth. All credit lines associated with the Reed Marshall Trust were revoked this morning at 8 a.m. sharp, per the guarantor's explicit request. Nolan felt a spike of pure cold dread. The guarantor? What guarantor? I'm the guarantor on her accounts. No, sir, the banker replied. The guarantor on all these accounts, including your corporate line of credit, has always been Mr. Gabriel M. Reed. Nolan's knees felt weak. He grabbed the desk to steady himself. G.M. Reed, that's just her father. He's a retired engineer. He's on a pension. He doesn't have... The banker cut him off. Mr. Gabriel M. Reed is the chairman of the Reed Marshall Trust, sir. He is our client. And as of 08:15 this morning, he also flagged this account for suspicious and fraudulent activity. All associated assets, including your joint account, are frozen pending a full investigation. Good day, Mr. Vance. The line clicked dead. Nolan dropped the phone. It clattered onto the hardwood floor. Fraudulent, he whispered. He stumbled back, his mind racing, trying to connect the dots. The old man, the simple clothes, the cheap car, the name, G.M. Reed, Reed Marshall. He ran to the boxes he had piled in the hallway, the ones from Sarah's study. He ripped one open. An engineering award. He ripped open another. A plaque. He read the inscription. To Gabriel M. Reed, Chairman for a Lifetime of Innovation in Structural Engineering, the Reed Marshall Foundation. Chairman. Oh my God, Nolan whispered. It wasn't a pension. It was an empire. An empire he had just declared war on. Ava ran into the room, her face pale with panic. Nolan, what is it? What did the bank say? He did this, well, Nolan whispered, staring at the plaque in his hands. The old man. He did this. How did he do this? What do you mean, how? Ava was starting to cry. What is Reed Marshall? What is going on, Nolan? Before Nolan could even begin to form a lie, a loud, aggressive pounding echoed through the house. It wasn't a knock. It was a demand. Ava screamed. Nolan jumped. He crept to the front door and looked through the peephole. His heart stopped. Two men in dark, severe suits stood on his porch, and behind them on the walkway were two uniformed police officers. Nolan backed away from the door as if he'd been burned. Ava, he whispered, his voice trembling. Don't make a sound. Don't open the door. One of the officers stepped forward, his voice muffled but clear and terrifyingly loud. Mr. Nolan Vance, this is the Boise Police Department. We have a search warrant for this residence in relation to an investigation for securities fraud. Open the door or we will force entry. I remained in the royal suite for 12 hours. The sun was beginning to set, painting the city in shades of orange and purple. The view from the 50th floor was quiet, almost peaceful, but I knew that far below the storm I had unleashed was just beginning to make landfall. My private phone, the one reserved only for Carla Diaz, vibrated on the heavy glass desk. I let it vibrate twice before answering. "Carla, report." Her voice was crisp, efficient, exactly as Sarah had always liked it. "The search warrant was executed at 9:15 this morning. The Boise police are, as we speak, cataloging the contents of Mr. Vance's hard drives. They found a great deal of incriminating evidence. He wasn't just sloppy Gabriel. He was arrogant. He kept 2 sets of books on the same laptop." "And the Swiss investors?" I asked. I swirled the ice in my water glass. "Ulrich, specifically. He was the first person to call our office," Carla said. "He was illustrative. It seems he received the SEC notification and the bank alert at the same time. He called Nolan Vance 13 times. He told me, and I am quoting, 'I will personally bury that little thief.'" I permitted myself a small, cold smile. "Good. The wolves are turning on each other. What about my daughter?" My voice did not waver. It could not. "That," Carla said, "is the most interesting development. Our IT team monitoring the trust's network security has flagged multiple high-priority inquiries, all originating from inside your house. Ava has spent the last 3 hours on Google. She has been searching for Reed Marshall Net Worth and GM Reed Engineering." "And what did she find?" I asked. "She found the public filings, the patent libraries, the philanthropic reports. She found you, Gabriel. I imagine it must be quite a shock to discover that your simple father is one of the wealthiest engineers in the country." I closed my eyes for a moment. I pictured Ava's face, the confusion, the denial, the slow, creeping horror as she realized the man she'd married had picked a fight he could not possibly win. This was necessary. It was the only way she would ever see the truth. "Carla," I said, a new thought solidifying. "There is one more thing. My wife Sarah left a small personal trust fund directly for Ava. It is separate from the main Reed Marshall Fund. I am the executor. I want you to look into it. I have a terrible feeling Nolan did not stop at just my guarantees." There was a pause. I heard the rapid, precise sound of Carla's typing. "Gabriel," her voice was tight. "You were right. There has been activity. A single withdrawal. A very large one. $90,000, 4 months ago. And the authorization signature," I asked, though I already knew the answer. My blood ran cold. "It's yours, Gabriel. Or rather a very clumsy forgery of it. He did not just steal from me. He did not just steal from his investors. He stole from her. He stole directly from Sarah's legacy to her daughter." This was the final nail. This was the proof Ava would not be able to ignore. This was not a misunderstanding. This was not projecting success. This was calculated sociopathic theft. "I assume Ava is unaware of this?" I asked. "She is," Carla confirmed. "But the private bank associated with that specific trust is now also flagging the account, thanks to the broader freeze we initiated. She is about to find out." As if summoned by her words, my other phone lit up. The family phone. The one I had not answered since I walked out of my house. The screen read, "Ava." I let it ring. It stopped. It immediately rang again. I let it go to voicemail. It rang a third time, and a fourth, and a fifth. "She's getting the bank alerts now," I murmured, watching the screen light up relentlessly. "Gabriel," Carla asked, still on the private line. "The hunt has begun, Carla. She is finally realizing the man she married is not just a bad businessman. He is a parasite. And he has been feeding on both of us." The family phone rang again. "Ava." I looked at the screen as a new voicemail notification appeared. Then another. Then a string of text messages began to pour in. "Dad, What's going on? Dad, the police were here. They took Nolan's computers. Dad, please pick up. The bank is calling me. They're talking about fraud. I don't understand. Dad, please. I looked at her desperate messages. I felt a pang of something. Pity, no. It was the dull, unavoidable ache of a surgeon setting a broken bone. This pain was necessary for the healing. This was the only way to save her. She is panicking, I said to Carla. She is terrified. What are your instructions, Gabriel? Do you want me to contact her, to explain? No, I said. I silenced the family phone and set it face down on the desk. Not yet. She needs to sit in the rubble for a little while. She needs to understand exactly what he did. When she is desperate enough, when she has no one else to turn to, when she is finally ready to listen, then we will call her. I hung up the private line. The suite was silent again, save for the muffled, incessant vibration of the family phone on the desk. Down below, the police cars were pulling away from my house, carrying Nolan's digital life, his lies, his entire fabricated world. And inside that house, my daughter was finally terrifyingly alone with the truth. I let 2 full days pass. I did not leave the suite. I had meals brought in. I slept in a bed larger than my entire basement room. And I watched. My phone, the family phone, became a monument to my daughter's desperation. It vibrated on the desk, a frantic buzzing insect. I did not silence it. I let it perform. Carla Diaz had set up a command center in the suite's adjoining study. She had a team of analysts, legal aides, and security personnel working around the clock. The house is isolated, Gabriel, she reported, not looking up from her screen. All joint accounts are frozen. The credit lines are severed. The internet service, which was billed to a corporate account Nolan controlled, an account we now own, has been discontinued. They are, as the expression goes, off the grid. They were trapped in my house. The very asset they had planned to liquidate. The irony was exquisite. Nolan, I was told, did not take it well. On the first morning, he had apparently tried to order a limousine only to be told his card was invalid. He had tried to call his investors only to find his calls routed directly to their lawyers. And on the second morning, the Boise Gazette landed on the front lawn. My security team, parked in an unmarked van down the street, sent me a photograph of the front page. It was beautiful. Boise Tech Wunderkind, or billion-dollar fraud. Nolan Vance, CEO of Vance Dynamics, faces SEC investigation. The article was devastating. It detailed his lies, the fictitious technology, the potential contracts that never existed. It mentioned the Swiss investors now described as enraged victims, and it mentioned in passing that the entire enterprise had been guaranteed by his father-in-law, a reclusive and wealthy local engineer. Carla's team had been very, very busy. According to our surveillance, Carla said, sipping her black coffee. Mr. Vance spent 45 minutes on the front lawn screaming at the newspaper. He then threw it into the neighbor's pool. And Ava? I asked. She has not left the house. She appears to be retreating. I imagined her there in that house that was no longer a home, trapped with the man who had ruined her, the man she had chosen over me. I felt nothing but a cold, surgical pity. Ava was for the first time in her life completely cut off. No money, no friends, because her friends were all part of Nolan's high-flying artificial world, and no father to call. Or so she thought. The family phone buzzed. Call number 23. From Ava. It went to voicemail just like the 22 before it. Her messages are becoming emotional, Carla noted, reviewing the transcripts her system automatically generated. The first 10 were just dad pickup. The last 5 are pleading. Good. Pleading was a start. My team reported that Nolan's rage was filling the house like a toxic gas. He was apparently breaking things, shouting, blaming. He was blaming the investors, blaming the police, blaming the reporters, And of course, he was blaming me. But most of all, he was blaming Ava. This is your fault. My team's audio feed picked up through the open kitchen window. Your idiot father, you were supposed to handle him. You were supposed to have him wrapped around your little finger. I listened to the recording. I heard Ava's muffled sobs. He's a senile old fool. How did he do this? How did he outsmart me? Carla looked at me over her glasses. He is not taking this well. He has not yet begun to understand what is happening, I said. Ava, my team reported, had fled from Nolan's tirade. She had run into the one room he had no interest in, Sarah's study. The room he had so arrogantly claimed, but which was now sealed by police tape. No, wait. I had asked Carla to have the tape removed. It was just a room again. An empty room. Ava walked inside. She sat on the floor surrounded by the boxes I had packed. The boxes Nolan had ordered me to move. She was crying. Then, according to the report, she just sat there for hours. Finally, she opened one of the boxes. She pulled out a model, the Golden Gate Bridge, Sarah's masterpiece. She had won her first national award for her retrofit design of it. Ava had been 10. She had been so proud of her mother that day. She held the model in her hands. She traced the lines. For the first time in her adult life, she was alone in a room with her mother's legacy. With no Nolan to tell her it was junk. With no social media to distract her. She was finally seeing what Nolan had called toys. She was seeing the genius. She was seeing the awards on the wall that he had ignored. She was seeing the name. Reed Marshall. And on her laptop, running on its last bar of battery, she was finally connecting the name of the foundation on the wall to the headlines in the news. She was realizing that her mother was not just Mom. She was Sarah Marshall. And her father was not just Gabe. He was GM Reed. The family phone on my desk began to vibrate. It didn't stop. It rang, went to voicemail, and immediately rang again. A frantic, desperate pulse. Call 29. Call 30. Dad, I'm at the study. I'm looking at Mom's things. I didn't know. Call 31. Nolan lied to me, Dad. He's yelling. He's scaring me. Please, Dad, pick up the phone. Call 32. Dad, I just got another alert. From the bank. The trust fund. Mom's trust fund. It's empty. It says Nolan took the money. It says he forged your signature. A long pause. Call 33. A new voicemail. Her voice was broken. He stole from me. He stole from Mom. Oh my God. Dad, what do I do? Please, I have nowhere to go. Please help me. Call 34. Call 35. Call 36. I listened to every single one. I let her terror, her realization, her complete and total desperation sink in. She had to hit rock bottom. She had to understand that the man she had chosen, the man for whom she had sacrificed her own father, was a predator. Call 37. It rang once, twice, 3 times. It went to voicemail. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do, please. I looked at Carla. She had been watching me, her face impassive. I nodded. Once. It is time, I said. The family phone went silent. Ava was probably slumped on the floor of the study, defeated, her phone battery dead, her world in ashes. I waited 1 minute. Then Carla Diaz picked up her own secure line. She dialed the number to my house. Miss Ava Reed. Carla's voice was cold, sharp, and absolutely devoid of pity. This is Carla Diaz. I am legal counsel for Mr. Gabriel Marshall Reed. I could imagine Ava on the other end, confused, terrified. Your father will see you now. You will come alone. To the Four Seasons Hotel. You have 1 hour. Ava arrived at the Four Seasons exactly 1 hour later. Her hands were shaking. She had used the last of the cash in her purse for the taxi. She felt cheap, dirty. Walking into the opulent lobby, she felt the stares of the staff. She was the woman from the police search, the wife of the fraudster on the front page of the Gazette. She approached the front desk. I'm here to meet Gabriel Reed. The manager, who had clearly been waiting for her, smiled. Of course, Ms. Reed. We have been expecting you. Please follow me. She expected him to lead her to the lounge, perhaps a small private dining room. Instead, he led her to the executive elevator using a private key card. They ascended in silence to the highest floor. The doors opened onto a private foyer. He is waiting for you in the chairman's suite, the manager said, gesturing to a set of massive dark wood doors. Chairman's suite. The manager opened the doors. The room was enormous. It was not a hotel room, it was a command center. A colossal mahogany table stretched the length of the room, surrounded by at least 30 chairs. At the far end, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city, and at the head of the table sat her father. He was not Dad. He was not the man in the simple sweater who had cooked beef bourguignon. The man sitting there wore an impeccably tailored, dark navy suit. His white hair, usually slightly unkempt, was perfectly styled. His hands, which she had last seen trembling as he picked up the pieces of a broken model, were steepled calmly in front of him. He looked powerful. He looked like the men Nolan had always tried and failed to imitate. He was not alone. To his right sat the woman from the phone, Carla Diaz, in a severe but expensive legal suit. To his left sat two older gentlemen, both radiating the same quiet, effortless authority as her father. They looked at her not as a daughter, but as a potential problem. Ava, thank you for coming, Gabriel said. His voice was different. It was the same tone, but the weakness was gone. It was replaced by a calm, controlled resonance that commanded the room. Please sit. He gestured to the single chair at the opposite end of the massive table. It felt like an interrogation. Dad, what is this? Ava's voice was a whisper. She felt small, like a child who had wandered into her parents' important adult meeting. Who are these people? What is this? This room, her father replied, is a meeting of the Board of Trustees for the Reed Marshall Foundation. I am Gabriel Marshall Reed, the chairman. These are my colleagues, Mr. Chen and Dr. Aris. And this, he gestured to Carla, is our chief counsel, Ms. Diaz. Ava gripped the arms of the chair. Reed Marshall, the name from her Google search, the name on the plaques in the study. I don't understand, she stammered. You're an engineer. You're retired. I am a retired engineer, Gabriel said. But the foundation your mother and I built, is not. It is very, very active. He looked at Carla. Ms. Diaz, if you would be so kind as to bring my daughter up to speed. It seems there has been a significant lapse in her financial education. Carla Diaz opened a leather-bound folder. Her voice was as sharp and cold as a scalpel. Miss Reed, 30 years ago, your mother, Dr. Sarah Marshall, and your father, Gabriel Reed, founded the Reed Marshall Trust. This entity was designed to manage the intellectual property, the patents, related to their engineering work. Ava shook her head. Patents? What, like, for the little models? Mr. Chen, one of the old men, actually laughed. It was not a kind sound. Ms. Reed, your mother's little models were prototypes. Her work on high-tensile alloys and seismic dampening technology revolutionized modern bridge construction. 70% of the bridges you drove over to get here, he gestured to the window, use technology patented by your mother. Ava felt the air leave her lungs. Carla continued. Those patents generate passive royalties. As of the last fiscal year, the Reed Marshall Foundation's annual income not total value, was just over $14 million. $14 million. Ava's world tilted. No, she whispered. No, that's impossible. My dad, he lives in the basement. My choice. Gabriel's voice cut across the table. A choice I made after your mother died. I did not want to raise my daughter in the shadow of that kind of money. I wanted you to be normal. I wanted you to value work. I wanted you to learn to love people for who they were, not what they had. He paused, his eyes filled with a profound, cold sadness. It appears I failed. 14 million. Ava was stuck on the number. Then, the house, the accounts, everything, is owned, managed, and controlled exclusively by the trust, Carla finished. A trust of which your father is the sole and absolute chairman. Ava looked at her father, the man she had allowed her husband to order into the basement. The man she had let Nolan call a senile old fool. The man who apparently could buy and sell their entire world with pocket change. Now, Carla Diaz said, sliding a new set of documents down the polished table. Let us discuss your husband, Mr. Nolan Vance. Ava flinched. Your father was exceptionally generous to Mr. Vance. Believing he was supporting his daughter's happiness, he personally guaranteed all of Mr. Vance's business loans. A catastrophic error in judgment, but a legal one. Carla tapped a red-flagged document. Mr. Vance, however, was not satisfied. 4 months ago, he applied for a $200,000 business loan using your personal trust fund as collateral. The small one your mother left you. I co-signed, Ava whispered. He said it was just a formality. He lied, Carla said. You did not have the authority to sign. Only the executor, your father, did. So Mr. Vance simply forged his signature. Ava's stomach turned to ice. Forged? He attempted to copy your father's signature from an old Christmas card. It is a pathetic, almost comical forgery, and it is a federal crime. Carla pushed another document forward. Which brings us to the investors. The gentlemen you hosted for dinner. They were not investing in a real company. Our audit confirms Vance Dynamics has no viable technology. It is a shell. Nolan Vance was simply using their investment to pay off other older debts. A classic Ponzi scheme. No, Ava pleaded. He was just stressed. He made mistakes. He didn't make mistakes, Ava. Gabriel's voice was heavy with finality. He made choices. He chose to lie to you. He chose to steal from your mother's legacy. He chose to defraud his partners. And he chose... Gabriel's eyes hardened, to try and liquidate my home and have me declared mentally incompetent. All so he could continue his fantasy a little longer. Ava finally broke. A sob tore from her throat. I didn't know, she cried. I didn't know, I thought. You thought what, Ava? Gabriel asked. That I was weak, that I was poor, that I was disposable. You stood there in my kitchen and you let that parasite give me an ultimatum in my own home. You let him throw me out. You chose him. I was scared, she wept. And now you should be, Gabriel replied. He looked at Carla. Carla Diaz slid one last document across the table. It landed in front of Ava. This, Carla said, is a petition for divorce. Ava stared at the paper. Ava Reed Vance versus Nolan Vance. Your father has retained the best matrimonial lawyer in the state on your behalf. Her services are already paid for. Ava looked up at her father, her face a mask of tears and disbelief. You're forcing me to divorce him. No, Gabriel said, standing up for the first time. He walked to the window, his back to her, and looked out over his city. I am forcing you to choose. You can sign that paper, walk away from him, and begin to rebuild your life. Or you can walk out that door, stay with him, and go down with his sinking ship. He turned, his face etched in stone. The choice, Ava, is yours. But this time, choose wisely. Ava's sobs were harsh in the quiet, cavernous room. I didn't know. She wept, the words muffled by her hands. I didn't know any of it. The forgery. The SEC. I thought his business was real. He just needed a little help. I looked at her, my daughter, a 40-year-old woman crying like a child. The love I felt for her was a deep, painful ache, but it was now overlaid with the cold, hard clarity of a surgeon. Pity was a luxury we could no longer afford. No, I said, my voice echoing slightly off the long, polished table. You didn't want to know. There is a difference. She looked up, her face streaked with mascara and disbelief. What? Nolan's technology was never viable, I stated, walking slowly from the window toward her. The patents he claimed to have, they were just applications he never completed. The prototype he showed the Swiss investors, it was a simulation, a very expensive video game. How do you know that? She whispered. Because, I said, stopping a few feet away, my team at Reed Marshall vetted his entire company 6 months ago as a standard part of our risk assessment for the loan guarantees he kept requesting. I have a 150-page report detailing every lie, every falsified projection, every shell corporation he created. I looked at Carla Diaz. Ms. Diaz, show her the executive summary. Carla slid another thinner folder across the table. Ava's hands trembled as she opened it. She read the first page, her eyes scanning the bullet points. No viable product. Funds diverted to personal accounts. High risk of insolvency. Conclusion, a complete fabrication. But if you knew... Ava's voice was barely audible. If you knew all this, why did you let it happen? Why did you let him? Let me do this? This was the question, the heart of the matter. Because you wouldn't have believed me, I said, my voice heavy with the weight of the last 2 years. I tried, Ava. Do you remember a year ago I took you to lunch? I told you I had concerns about Nolan's business model. I told you he seemed to be spending money he didn't have. Ava looked down, remembering. And what did you say to me? I prompted. She winced. I said you were being negative, that you were jealous of his ambition, that you just didn't understand technology, and you should stick to your old bridges. I am the man who designed the load-bearing systems for those old bridges, I said, my voice sharp. And I understood his technology perfectly. It was a lie. But you chose the lie over me. You chose the fantasy over the truth. Because it was shiny. Because he promised you the world. I leaned my hands on the table. I realized then, Ava, that I could not tell you the truth. You had to see it. I could not save you from him. You had to save yourself. So you set this all up? She asked, her eyes wide with a new dawning horror. No, I did not set it up. He did. Nolan built this entire house of cards. He chose to forge my name. He chose to lie to his investors. He chose to threaten a senile old man in his own kitchen. I paused, letting the words sink in. I simply let it happen. I stopped protecting him. I stopped being his financial safety net. I removed the pillows I had secretly placed under his tightrope act for the last 3 years. What do you mean? The credit cards he used, the ones he told you were company perks, they were all guaranteed by the Reed Marshall Trust. The late payments on your apartment, the ones that magically sorted themselves out, the trust paid them. The first round of seed money he got, it wasn't from an angel investor. It was from me, funneled through a blind account. I was trying to give him enough rope to succeed, hoping he would. Instead, he just used it to hang himself. Ava was silent. The full scope of the deception, his and my own, was finally settling on her. She had been living in a curated reality funded by the very man she had helped discard. So, she finally whispered. This is all just a lesson, a cruel lesson. This, I said, is a consequence. This is reality. And now you must face it. Carla Diaz, who had been waiting patiently, straightened her papers. Ms. Reed, your husband's actions have consequences that go far beyond his personal bankruptcy. She slid a new document thick with legal text across the table. The Reed Marshall Foundation is filing a civil suit against Nolan Vance for $10 million in damages. This is for the fraudulent use of the foundation's name, the unauthorized use of its assets as collateral, and the direct reputational damage to its chairman, your father. 10 million. Ava looked as if she were about to faint. That is a conservative estimate, Carla said coldly. We are also filing for an immediate seizure of all known assets belonging to Mr. Vance. His car, his personal accounts, his watch collection. Everything will be liquidated to begin to cover the damages. Ava looked at her hands. We have nothing. Oh, but you do, Carla said. You have your marriage. Under the laws of this state, you are a community property partner. His debt is your debt. His liability is your liability. No! Ava stood up so fast, her chair screeched backward. I didn't do any of it. I didn't know. It doesn't matter, Carla said. You benefited from it. You lived in the house. You drove the cars. You wore the clothes. The law will see you as his partner in all things, including his crimes. Ava looked at me, her face a mask of pure terror. Dad, you can't let this happen. I'll be ruined. I'll have nothing. I looked at my daughter, the woman who 24 hours ago had silently agreed to have me thrown out of my home. You are correct, I said. You will have nothing, which is precisely where you would have been if you had married the cat you thought he was. The only difference is that now you will be free. I nodded to Carla. Carla Diaz slid one final simple document across the table. It landed in front of Ava. It had no complex figures, no clauses, no addendums. It was a petition for divorce. Your father, Carla said, her voice softening for the first time, has retained the services of Aris Thorne and Partners, the best matrimonial law firm in the country. Their retainer has been paid in full. Ava stared at the paper. Ava Reed Vance versus Nolan Vance. She looked at me, her eyes uncomprehending. You're forcing me to divorce him. No, I said, walking to the window and turning my back to her. The city lights were bright. I am forcing you to choose. You can sign that paper, walk away from him, and begin to rebuild your life. The divorce filing will cite irreconcilable differences and financial fraud, which will legally separate you from his debts. You will walk away with nothing, but you will owe nothing. You will be free. I paused, listening to her ragged breathing. Or you can walk out that door. You can stay with him. You can choose to be Mrs. Nolan Vance, wife of a convicted felon. You can share his $10 million debt. You can spend the next 20 years of your life trying to pay off the mess he made. I turned to face her. Her face was pale. He is a parasite, Ava, and he has been feeding on you and on me for years. I am giving you the knife to cut him off. Whether you use it is up to you. But I love him, she whispered. No, I said, my voice final. You love the idea of him. You love the fantasy he sold you. The man you love does not exist. The man who does exist forged my name and stole from your mother. The choice is yours, Ava. But this time, choose wisely. Ava walked out of the Four Seasons, the divorce papers clutched in her hand like a shield. She looked hollowed out, the entire foundation of her life. A life I had financed, and he had built on lies, had been vaporized in 30 minutes. She took a taxi back to my house. The house I owned. The house where the man who had destroyed her was waiting. I did not let her go alone. Carla, I had said, he will be volatile. He is a cornered animal. Send the team. They are already in place, Gummo, Carla replied. They have been monitoring the house since yesterday. We have full audio and video. You will see everything. I sat back down in the chairman's suite. The team set up a monitor. I was about to watch my daughter walk back into the lion's den. But this time the lion was in a cage. He just didn't know it yet. When Ava arrived, the front door was wide open. She walked in. The living room, my living room, was gone. It looked as if a hurricane had torn through it. The sofa cushions were slashed, stuffing pulled out. Sarah's antique vases, the ones she had collected from her travels, were shattered against the wall. And Nolan was on his hands and knees, prying up the hardwood floorboards near the fireplace. Where is it? He was muttering, his voice a low, animalistic growl. The cash, the bonds. Where does an old senile man hide his money? Ava just stood in the doorway, watching the man she had married, the man she had chosen over me, digging his own grave. Nolan, she said. Her voice was not a whisper. It was cold. He spun around, his eyes wild. He didn't see his wife. He saw an accomplice who had betrayed him. You! He screamed, scrambling to his feet. He was covered in sweat and dust. Where is he? What did you agree to? What's your cut? My cut, Ava asked, her voice empty. Don't play dumb with me, he shrieked. You went to see him, the old man. You're in on it together. You're trying to cut me out. He grabbed her, shaking her hard. How much is he worth? Tell me how much. Ava looked at him. She looked at his wild eyes, his desperate grip, and for the first time she felt nothing. No love, no fear, just a cold, empty pity. $14 million, she said. Nolan froze. His hands were still on her arms, but his grip went slack. What did you just say? Want $14 million? Ava repeated louder this time. She stepped into the center of the room, into the mess he had made. That's what Reed Marshall generates. A year, passively, from Mom's patents. Dad is the chairman of the board. Nolan let go of her. He stumbled back at his mind, visibly short-circuiting. He was trying to process the number. He was still thinking, we. 14 million, he whispered. A slow, greedy, manic smile spread across his face. Oh my God, Ava. We're rich. We are unimaginably rich. He lunged forward, but this time not in anger. He tried to hug her. Baby, this is it. We did it. You have to fix this. You have to call him, apologize. We can work with him. We can be a family. We're rich. I watched on the monitor as my daughter, the daughter I thought was weak, found her strength. She put her hand flat on his chest and pushed him away, hard. No, Nolan, she said. We are nothing. You are nothing. His smile vanished. What? What are you talking about? He's your father. He'll forgive you. You're his only daughter. You can cry. You can beg. He's not suing me, Nolan, Ava said. She walked over to the table, the only piece of furniture not overturned, and slapped the divorce papers down. He's suing you. Suing me? He laughed. That high-pitched, hysterical sound I had heard on the phone. For what? Hurting his feelings, being a bad son-in-law. For $10 million, Ava said. The laughter stopped. $10 million, she repeated. For securities fraud. For forging my father's signature on Mom's trust fund. For using the Reed Marshall name to defraud your investors. For being you. Nolan stared at her. He can't. He can't prove any of that. It's my word against his. It's your word against the SEC, Ava replied. It's your word against the forensic audit. It's your word against the Swiss investors who are also suing you. And it's your word against the United States Attorney's Office. Dad, they're all suing you. He finally understood. He looked around the room at the destruction at the woman standing before him. He wasn't a king. He wasn't even a player. He was a bug about to be crushed. You, he whispered, his face twisting into something ugly. You let this happen. You were supposed to be on my side. I was, Ava said, her voice shaking but firm. Until I found out you stole from my mother's trust. You forged my father's name. You lied to me every single day for 5 years. You lied to me last night. I did it for us, he roared, and now the mask was gone. The charm, the confidence, the charisma, it all evaporated. The creature left behind was raw, violent, and terrified. He lunged at her. He grabbed her by the throat and slammed her against the wall. I watched on the monitor, my own heart stopping. In my ear, I heard Carla's voice. Team is moving. Go! You worthless stupid! Nolan screamed, his face inches from hers. You let him do this to me. You were always weak, just like he said. Ava clawed at his hands, her feet dangling. You call him now. Nolan squeezed his voice, a guttural roar. You tell him to stop. You tell him you won't testify. Tell him you forged the signature. Tell him it was all your idea. Do you hear me, Ava? You are taking the fall for this, not me. No, she choked out. What did you say? He tightened his grip, lifting her slightly off the floor. No. She raised her knee hard, driving it into his groin with all her strength. Nolan howled a strangled, inhuman sound and stumbled back, collapsing over a chair, clutching himself. Ava didn't hesitate. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She grabbed her phone from her pocket as he writhed on the floor. She ran for the front door, bursting out onto the lawn, gasping for the cold, clean air. Nolan scrambled to his feet, howling in rage. Get back here! You're not leaving me! You're my wife! You're not going anywhere! He barreled out the front door just as she reached the sidewalk. He grabbed her by the hair and yanked her backward, pulling her to the ground. Give me that phone! Get your hands off her! The voice was not mine. It was deep, calm, and absolute. Nolan froze. 2 men in dark, severe suits were standing on the lawn. They had gotten out of the black sedan that had been parked across the street. They were my security team, the men who had been with me at the hotel. Nolan looked from the men to Ava to the house. The trap was complete. He was surrounded. You set me up, he breathed, finally letting go of Ava's hair. I watched on the monitor as my daughter scrambled to her feet and ran behind the 2 men. Nolan looked up directly at the front window. He knew I was watching. He knew I had seen everything. This isn't over, old man, he screamed at the house. You hear me? This isn't over. No, Mr. Vance, the head of security said, his hand moving inside his jacket. It is. At that exact moment, the flashing blue and red lights of a Boise police car turned the corner, its siren wailing. The police that Carla had called the moment she saw him lay his hands on my daughter. Nolan's shoulders slumped. He didn't run. There was nowhere left to run. The game was over. Ava remained in the chairman's suite, the divorce papers lying on the table in front of her like a death sentence. She was staring at them, but I knew she wasn't seeing them. She was seeing the last 5 years of her life. A fantasy. A beautiful, expensive lie. I left her there with Carla Diaz. Carla would explain the next steps, the legal protections, the safe houses if needed. My daughter was in good hands. My work was not yet finished. I returned to my house. The taxi pulled up to the curb. The police cars were gone. The reporters, thankfully, had not yet arrived. The street was quiet, as if nothing had happened. But the front door was still wide open, hanging crooked on one hinge. A gaping wound. I walked up the path. My security team, the 2 men in dark suits, were standing discreetly by the entrance. Mr. Reed, the lead, a man named Harris, said. The police have secured the premises. They have officially removed Mr. Vance. Your daughter is safe. She is not safe, I said. She is just alone. Wait here. I stepped inside. The scene I had watched on the monitor was 1,000 times worse in person. The air was thick with the smell of violence. My living room, Sarah's living room, was in ruins. He had not just searched for money. He had intended to destroy. He had slashed the sofa cushions. He had shattered the antique vases. He had pulled my books from the shelves and torn them apart. And there on the floor, in the middle of it all, was the model of the Golden Gate Bridge, the one Ava had been holding just days before. It was not just broken. It was stomped. It was pulverized. He had destroyed my wife's memory. I stood there not in rage but in a profound, cold calm. This was not the act of a desperate man. This was the act of a true sociopath. A man who, upon realizing he had lost, decided to burn the entire world down with him. He had not just been a parasite. He had been a poison. I heard a car pull up outside. Fast. I heard a door slam. Mom. Dad. It was Ava. She must have left the hotel immediately after me. She ran into the room, her face pale, the divorce papers still clutched in her hand. He did this, she whispered, looking at the destruction. This isn't him. He wouldn't. Stop, I said, my voice sharp. Stop making excuses for him. This is exactly who he is. You just refuse to see it. But, Nolan, he's in trouble, Dad. We have to help him. He called me. From the police station. They said assault. They said fraud. He's scared. I turned to face her. And you, Ava? Are you not scared? He put his hands on your throat. He screamed that he would make you take the fall for his crimes. He was going to destroy you to save himself. He was just angry, she cried. He was upset. He didn't mean it. He meant every word, I said. I walked over to the ruined fireplace. I picked up a single splintered piece of the bridge model. He did this, Ava. He did this because he hates us. He doesn't just hate me. He hates you. He hates you for being your mother's daughter. He hates you for having what he wants. And he hates you because, in the end, you were not enough to save him. No, she sobbed, sinking onto one of the few chairs that wasn't overturned. He loves me. He made mistakes. I knew then that she was still trapped. She was still addicted to the fantasy. The legal papers were not enough. The arrest was not enough. She needed to see the final, undeniable truth. He did not make mistakes, I said. He made choices. The front door, which had been left ajar, swung open. It was Carla Diaz, and she was not alone. Ava, I said, you will want to see this. Carla walked in, followed by the 2 police officers from earlier. And between them, handcuffed in a rumpled suit, his face a mask of fury and disbelief, was Nolan. What is this? Ava screamed, jumping to her feet. Dad, why is he here? We call it a civil standby, one of the officers said, his voice bored. He is permitted under our supervision to retrieve his personal essential belongings. And nothing else. Nolan's eyes darted around the room, finally landing on me. The hatred in them was physical. It was a tangible thing. You, he spat. You have 10 minutes, Mr. Vance. Carla Diaz said, checking her watch. Your toiletries, your clothes, nothing else. The rest of this house and its contents are the property of the Reed Marshall Trust, pending seizure for the $10 million civil suit. 10 million? Nolan laughed, a high, broken sound. You'll never see a dime, old man. I've already moved everything. My investors, my real partners. They're protecting me. This This is just a show. You can't hold me. Nolan, stop, Ava pleaded. Just get your things. Get my things, he sneered at her. There's nothing to get. It's all in the accounts. The accounts you let him freeze. He took a step toward her. The officers tensed. You were supposed to be my wife. You were supposed to fix this. You lied to me, Ava finally screamed back, her voice tearing. You lied about everything. You stole from my mother's trust. You forged my father's signature. It was our money, Nolan roared. It was going to be ours if you hadn't been so weak. If you had just done what I told you, that old fool would be in a nursing home right now, and we would be on a plane to Zurich. I watched as my daughter's face crumbled. He had just confessed. He had just admitted in front of police officers that the plan to have me committed was real. Carla Diaz was holding up her phone, the red recording light glowing brightly. Thank you, Mr. Vance, Carla said, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. That confession will be invaluable in the criminal case. Nolan's face went white. He realized what he had done. He had just confirmed the conspiracy. This is entrapment, he stammered. This is you, Nolan, finally telling the truth. I said, go get your toothbrush. You're going to need it. He stared at me, his mind racing, looking for one last move, one final escape. He found none. Fine, he hissed. He turned to Ava. Fine. You want to be with him. You want to be the rich man's perfect little girl. Go. But I'm not going down alone. Officer, he said to the cop. Arrest her. Arrest me, Ava whispered. Yes, her. She was in on it. The whole thing, the fraud, the investors. She knew all about it. She helped me. She was the one who suggested we sell the house. Ava looked as if she had been slapped. What, Nolan? No. Yes, he screamed. She's the one who wanted the money. She was tired of her father, too. She wanted him gone just as much as I did. She's the mastermind. Ask her what she gets when he finally dies. He was a rat in a trap, and he was trying to pull everyone else in with him. Mr. Vance, the officer said, clearly unimpressed. Your wife is currently listed as the primary victim of your fraud, second only to her father. She's lying. She's manipulating you all, just like he is. Nolan pointed a cuffed hand at me. He's the devil. He played us. He played all of us. He was still screaming as they dragged him up the stairs to retrieve his suitcase. Ava sank to the floor, her body shaking with silent, racking sobs. I did not go to her. This was a pain she had to feel, a truth she had to absorb on her own. When Nolan was brought back down, his suitcase in his hand, he stopped one last time. He looked at me, at Ava, at the ruined room. The fight was gone. All that was left was a hollow, empty shell. You ruined me. He whispered the words barely audible. You had all that power, all that money. And you let me. You watched me. You let me do all this just so you could pull the rug out. You could have stopped me at any time. I walked calmly across my lawn. I stopped just a few feet from him. I looked him right in the eye. Yes, I said. I could have. He waited. He was waiting for an explanation, a justification, a sign of remorse. I gave him nothing. You let this happen. He breathed, the final horrible realization dawning on him. You wanted this to happen. I looked at my daughter, who was now staring at me, her tears frozen on her face. I looked back at the man who had tried to destroy my family. You are mistaken, Nolan, I said. My voice was quiet, but it carried in the night air. You ruined yourself. I leaned in just a little. I just turned on the lights. 6 months. That is how long it took to reclaim the house. That is how long it took to erase the physical scars. The police tape is gone. The heavy, acrid smell of Nolan's rage has finally faded. The sofa cushions he slashed have been reupholstered. The antique vases Sarah and I bought in Kyoto, the ones he shattered against the wall, they are gone forever. But the house is quiet again. It is a different kind of quiet. Not the empty peace of my retirement. It is the heavy, sober silence of an armistice. Today I am sitting in Sarah's study. It is no longer Nolan's fantasy office. It is her sanctuary once more. Her books are back on the shelves. Her awards are polished. The models have been meticulously, painstakingly restored. The Golden Gate Bridge, the small, intricate model he stomped into splinters, took a specialist 3 months to piece back together. But it stands on the desk now. It is whole. Ava is sitting across from me in the chair Sarah used to use. She is quiet. She is different. The divorce was finalized 2 months ago. It was fast, uncontested. Nolan never had the resources to fight it. He never had the resources to fight anything. Carla Diaz was relentless. The moment Nolan was in custody, the civil suits began. The Swiss investors, the SEC, and the Reed Marshall Foundation. We came at him from 3 sides. The evidence was absolute. The forged signature on Sarah's trust, the fabricated technology, the Ponzi scheme, the audio recording from my kitchen where he threatened me, and finally, the desperate, insane confession he made in front of 2 police officers as they cuffed him. He had no cards left to play. He pleaded guilty to 3 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of securities fraud. The judge sentenced Nolan Vance to 7 years in a federal white-collar correctional facility. Carla tells me it is a light sentence for the amount of damage he caused. But it is enough. He is gone. His name is a stain, a bad memory. He is no longer part of our world. Ava, my daughter, she lost everything that he had given her. The leased sports car was repossessed. The designer clothes were sold by liquidators. The apartment they shared before they invaded my home. It was all seized to pay the fractions of a cent on the dollar he owed his victims. She walked away with nothing, nothing but her name. The name I gave her, the name Sarah gave her. She is not idle. She is working. Here, with me. She is the new acting director of the Sarah Reed Foundation, the multi-million-dollar charity my wife and I founded to support young women in engineering. She spends her days reading applications, not fashion magazines. She spends her time interviewing brilliant young minds, not placating a parasitic husband. She is using her mother's legacy to build something real. She is quiet today. She is sketching on a pad, looking at the restored model of the Golden Gate. "It's the harmonics," she says, her voice soft. She doesn't look up. I'm reading her journals. I still don't understand how she solved the harmonic resonance problem. I smile. A real smile. The first one in months. She used a tuned mass damper, but she split the frequency. I explain. Everyone else was using a single pendulum. Your mother was the only one who realized the cross breeze from the bay created a secondary oscillation. She was brilliant. Ava puts the pencil down. She looks at me. Her eyes are clear. The weakness I saw, that desperate, childish need to be liked, it is gone. She just looks tired and strong. "Dad," she says. "I'm sorry." I wait. "I am so sorry," she says again, her voice quiet but steady. "I should have protected you. He was in your house. He was hurting you. He was terrorizing you. And I just let him. I chose him." This is the moment. The final piece, the wound that had not yet healed. I stand up and walk over to her. I put my hand on her shoulder. "No, Ava," I say. "I am sorry." She looks up confused. "What, Dad?" "No." "Yes," I insist. "I failed you. I am sorry I didn't prepare you for the world. I was so afraid the money would corrupt you that I hid it. I wrapped you in cotton wool. I let you believe that life was simple, that people were kind. I sigh. The guilt I have carried. I didn't teach you that the world is full of Nolans. I didn't teach you how to fight. I didn't teach you how to see. I look at her, my daughter, my only child. I overprotected you. I let you believe the world was soft, because I was always there in the shadows, silently paying the bills, fixing the problems. I was your invisible safety net. And because you never learned how to fall, you didn't know how to spot a man who was already halfway to the ground. My silence, my secrecy, it enabled him. It made you vulnerable. I look her in the eye. I am as much at fault for what happened as he is. Ava stands up. She looks at me, really looks at me. She sees the old man, the father, but she also sees GM Reed, the chairman. And she finally understands that they are the same person. She steps forward and she hugs me. It is not the hug of a child seeking comfort. It is the hug of an equal. So we both failed, she whispers into my shoulder. Yes, I say, my voice thick. We both did. So, she says, pulling back, wiping her eyes. We learn. We get better. I nod. We get better. She looks at the shattered, now restored model on the desk. He broke the first one, the one from the napkin. I know, I say. The specialists did their best, but the original, it's gone. She shakes her head. It's not the same. She walks back to the drafting table. She picks up her pencil. So, we build it again. From scratch. Together. I look at her. The daughter I thought I had lost. She is not the same. She is scarred. She is wiser. She is finally her mother's daughter. Yes. I say, a true warmth spreading through my chest. I think your mother would have liked that very much. I pull up a chair. She unrolls a fresh sheet of drafting paper. Okay, she says, and for the first time in years, I see a real, genuine smile. Show me again. Show me about the harmonics. And I do. This story teaches us a powerful lesson. True strength is not measured by a bank account, but by integrity and self-respect. Greed and arrogance can blind us, causing us to underestimate the quiet dignity of those we should honor most. It shows that while love can be unconditional, respect must be earned. By setting boundaries, we not only protect our own worth, but also teach others that consequences are the inevitable result of betrayal. True family is built on honesty, not exploitation, and it is never too late to reclaim your power. What would you have done in my place, and what do you think is the most important lesson from this story? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.